today's episode, I'm going to be taking you through my predictions for the 2023 NHL Draft, but only the first round. So the way I did this based on is just best player available, not really on who's picking and what their needs are in specific. If a team really does not have any right-handed D and there's a right-handed D available, I'm not just going to pick that right-handed D just because he's there. I'm going to pick the best player available because I believe that you can always make changes throughout your lineup and players when you select them in the future, and you can always trade a current player or someone that you've drafted that hasn't played yet for that gaping need in your lineup down in the future. So we're going to be starting with the number 1 overall pick and making our way down to 32. And the unanimous number 1 overall pick in this draft is Connor Bedard of the Regina Pats. He recorded 71 goals and 72 assists, 143 points in 57 regular season games, along with 10 goals and 10 assists in 7 playoff games after being eliminated in the first round by the Saskatoon Blades. While Bedard missed some regular season games because of the World Junior Championship, he was also just tearing it up there as well, recorded 9 goals and 14 assists, 23 points in 7 games, earning him MVP honors and a gold medal for Team Canada. The best part of Bedard's game is definitely his shot. His curl and drag is just insane. A lot of NHLers are already saying it'd probably be around the top in the NHL of the way he can just release the puck, and he should be able to score tons of goals in this league if he continues on that trajectory. He really just knows how to attack defenders and change his pace, which just makes him a very unpredictable player, and it's very hard for defensemen to read that. I just think his trajectory is to be a franchise player, and hopefully he's able to live up to those expectations, because honestly, I haven't seen a player hyped up this much since Connor McDavid. He's such a fun player to watch, and he should make the Chicago Blackhawks a really good team in the near future for a pretty long time. Moving on to the number 2 overall pick in this draft, currently held by the Anaheim Ducks, and I think that they're going to select Adam Fantilli from the University of Michigan. He had an awesome season there where he did win the Hobey Baker as the league's best player in all of NCAA. He recorded 30 goals, 35 assists for 65 points in 36 games, as well as 5 points in 7 World Junior games and 3 points in 10 World Championship games a couple months ago while Team Canada won the gold. Fantilli has a great shot and high-end offensive skill, which allows him to be a top-end point producer at pretty much every level that he's played at so far. He has a non-stop motor that makes him a threat physically, and he never passes up the opportunity to drive the net, making him a threat as a power forward and a scorer. In my eyes, Fantilli is ready to step right into the NHL and be an impact player for the Ducks, adding another center down that depth for the Anaheim Ducks, as they're looking pretty good already with Zegras, McTavish. They're going to add Fantilli to the mix, and you've got a player in Nathan Gauthier, who they've selected in the first round last season. The 3rd overall pick in this draft belongs to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I believe that they should be picking Matvei Michkov from Russia. He plays for SKA St. Petersburg, and he was loaned out to Sochi this year because he wasn't getting a lot of playing time with St. Petersburg. He only played 3 KHL games for St. Petersburg this year. He was being scratched and playing on the 4th line. He was loaned to Sochi, like I said, and he scored 9 goals, added 11 assists in 27 games. These numbers are comparable to NHLers in their draft year, like Alex Ovechkin, Nikita Kucherov. So, I mean, if you're looking at it right now before he's played an NHL game, he definitely has a really high upside. Besides Bedard, I think Michkov is the highest goal-scoring threat in this draft, finding multiple ways to score goals. He obviously has a great release on his shot, and he's really nifty with his hands, able to drive to the net and create chances. Obviously, a lot of people have talked about the risks of drafting Matvei Michkov is his contract and whether or not he is going to come over when that contract's finished. He did sign a 6-year deal with St. Petersburg in 2020, so that means he will not be able to come over to the NHL until 2026. So, I mean, it is a huge risk. He hasn't really talked to any teams at all. He didn't attend the Combine. I mean, some teams are looking to meet with him before this draft. I think the risk is worth it, though. I think if you pass up on him and go for another player, you're probably not getting as good of a player. And I think it could be like a Kirill Kaprizov situation where he spends a couple years in the KHL, comes over, and he could be a dominant player in this league from the first game that he plays in the NHL. And I just firmly believe that if he drops past the number 3 overall pick, whoever selects him is probably going to end up winning this draft because there's just so much upside with him, and he's got 3 full years to develop in the KHL, which is one of the best leagues in the world, before he comes over and plays for whoever it is. San Jose currently holds the 4th overall selection in this draft, and I believe that they should be picking Leo Carlsson out of Sweden. Leo Carlsson currently plays for Örebro in the SHL, where he recorded 10 goals, 15 assists for 25 points in 44 games with Orebro in the SHL. He is currently listed at 6'3", 194 pounds, which helps him drive the net and being able to fight off opponents physically. He has great hands, high-end playmaking ability, impressive skating, but the one thing I think he can work on, especially for his size, is his shot. If he's able to round that out as well, he's going to be looking like a really good player in the NHL. His hockey sense and smarts are probably his best ability. He is always looking like he wants to make the right play. He never rushes anything, and he looks like he never wants to give away the puck and make the team go in the other way on the transition. Pretty much like the way he carries the puck is just super special. He waits for D to make the first move and then just pounces on his opportunity. Like I said, he's all about making that right decision, and I think that's something that you want to see in a top-end pick. In my eyes, Carlsson projects to be a very good first-line center, and if the Sharks might be getting a great player at number 4 if he ends up falling to them. The number 5 pick in this draft currently is owned by the Montreal Canadiens, and I believe that they should be picking Will Smith. Was just awesome this past season. Between the USHL and the National Team Development Program, he had 66 goals, 103 assists for 169 points in 80 games. He's committed to Boston College next season, so he's most likely not going to be NHL ready, but I think that's okay. He's kind of probably going to be going the route, just like Arizona Coyotes pick last year, Logan Cooley, spending a couple of years in school and then coming over to the NHL. He is a dynamic offensive player who is an above-average skating, but can make tough plays under pressure, and that's definitely something you want to see from a high-end pick. He's shown dominance at the junior level, and I think it's going to translate to the NCAA and the NHL. He's got a really good shot, really good playmaking ability, which makes him a threat offensively. I think in the next couple seasons, he's projected to potentially be a number 1 center in the NHL. It'll be quite impactful for any team that picks him, but especially the Montreal Canadiens, because they're looking for that next dominant 1C. Nick Suzuki has the potential to get up there, but I don't really think that he's hit it yet. The 6th overall selection in the NHL draft currently belongs to the Arizona Coyotes, and I believe that they should be picking Ryan Leonard. Between Ryan Leonard and Will Smith, these guys played together in the USHL and the National Team Development Program. Leonard had 62 goals, 52 assists for 114 points in 74 games last season. Just like Will Smith, he's committed to go to Boston College next season, so they're going to continue the chemistry they had, and hopefully they can grow together and become great players in the NCAA and transition that over to the NHL. Best thing about Ryan Leonard's game right now is his shot. I'd say he already has a pro-caliber shot. He's great off the rush and just has a super awesome release. Leonard is a very strong player for his size, and he uses his speed to drive the net to create scoring chances, never really passing up an opportunity to put the puck in the net. I think if Ryan Leonard falls to Arizona number 6, the Coyotes should be super excited for a player like this, and he could be a very good player after coming over from college and going to the NHL, and hopefully in a couple years the Arizona Coyotes are more relevant and he can make an impact on their team. The number 7 overall pick in this draft currently belongs to the Philadelphia Flyers, and I believe that they should be looking at picking Zach Benson. Zach Benson currently plays for the Winnipeg Ice in the WHL, where he had 36 goals, 62 assists for 98 points in 60 games, along with 17 points in 15 playoff games, helping the Ice go all the way to the WHL finals, falling a bit short to the Seattle Thunderbirds. Benson is a little bit of an undersized player. He's currently listed at 5'10", 159 pounds, but he's just got phenomenal speed, especially when he hits that top-end gear. He can just break ankles out there, and he's just driving the net, scoring goals, and making plays. He's a really solid 200-foot player, too, which is super impressive to me, especially with his size, and that'll get some scouts' eyes, and he should be definitely going in the top 10. He's a threat offensively, and I think that Benson would be a great pick for the Flyers at number 7. The number 8 overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Washington Capitals. They haven't had a pick in the top 10 for quite some time now, and I think that they should be picking Dalibor Dvorsky. Dvorsky played for AIK in the Allsvenskan League, which is like the second-tier Swedish league, I believe. He had 6 goals, 8 assists for 14 points in 38 games. The thing with Dvorsky is he's got great skill, the ability to dangle through defenders and find his teammates a lot quicker than others. He can also be a threat scoring goals with a really high impressive hockey IQ, adding some really solid defensive play. I think that in the future, he's looking to be a really good second-line center and something that the Washington Capitals can definitely use. I know they have some pretty good center depth right now with Dylan Strome Nick Backstrom and Evgeny Kuznetsov. But I mean, in a couple years when Dvorsky's ready, Dylan Strome might still be there, but Backstrom could be gone. Kuznetsov could be fading out as a Washington Capital, as he requested a trade last season. So, I mean, Dvorsky would come in and fit really nicely, and I think he's the best player available at number 8. The 9th overall pick in this year's draft belongs to the Detroit Red Wings, and I think that they should take defenseman David Reinbacher. He would be the first D off the board, and I believe that he is the best defenseman in this draft. He's a rock-solid defensive player with a very active stick, angling off opponents and using his big 6'2" frame to close puck carriers off physically. He's really not afraid to use that body at all. He played pro in Switzerland this year in the National League, where he recorded 3 goals, 19 assists for 22 points in 46 games. In a few seasons, I think that he could hop into a potential top 4 role with the Detroit Red Wings, playing behind stud Moritz Seider, and I think that it would help round out the right side of Detroit's decor quite nicely. The number 10 overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the St. Louis Blues, and if available, I think they should select forward Gabe Perreault. Perreault played on one of the best lines in the USHL this season with Ryan Leonard and Will Smith. He combined in both leagues in the USHL and the National Team Development Program for 72 goals, 105 assists for 177 points in 86 games. The best part about Perreault's game is probably his hands and his high hockey IQ. He's been known as a playmaker, but broke out for 72 goals this season, which helped him climb the ranks in this year's draft. I had Leonard down near more like the 20 range for most of the season, but seeing how much he improved throughout the year, I had to bump him up to the number 10 spot because I think he's definitely worth it. And I think his stat line is just going to attract teams. And I think if available at number 10, St. Louis is getting a super solid player. And I think he projects to be a good top 6 forward in the future. The number 11 overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Vancouver Canucks. And if they decide to hold on to this pick, I think that they should draft Colby Barlow out of the OHL. Barlow played for the Owen Sound Attack. He captained the team and was their best player. He had 46 goals, 33 assists for 79 points in 59 games this season. The best part about Barlow's game is easily his shot. I'd say behind Michkov and Bedard, he might have one of the best shots in this draft. He's able to score in a number of different ways. He's awesome on breakaways, one-timers, and he has that form-perfect wrist shot that is very deadly. Honestly, I think that Barlow is already a huge threat offensively, but if he joins an organization like the Canucks and ends up playing with a guy like Pettersson, Barlow can continue his elite goal-scoring trajectory from the OHL onto the NHL, and he'd be a super solid pick for the Canucks at number 11. The number 12 overall selection in this year's draft currently belongs to the Arizona Coyotes. This is their second pick of the first round, as they did receive a first-round pick from the Ottawa Senators in the Jacob Chikrin deal, so they will be picking at number 12 for their second pick in the first round, and I believe that they should pick Andrew Cristall out of the WHL. Cristall recorded 39 goals, 56 assists for 95 points in 54 games for the Kelowna Rockets in the WHL this year. The best thing about Cristall is his hockey IQ. He's probably one of the smartest players in this draft, showing off high-end puck skills. He's got really good edges and head fakes to make defenders bite. The downfall in Cristall is definitely his speed, and you can see with that stat line, you'd probably think he'd be a little bit higher up in the draft, but I think his speed is definitely what puts him down. But if that's something he can improve on and the Coyotes can help him with, I think he's going to be a fantastic pick at number 12 overall. Arizona has the time to help him develop and become a really good NHL player in a couple years when they are a good team, and he might spend the next 2 years in the WHL just trying to develop those skills before he gets a shot in the NHL. The number 13 overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Buffalo Sabres, and if available, I think they should be picking Matthew Wood. Wood recorded 11 goals, 23 assists, 34 points in 35 games for the University of Connecticut in the NCAA this year as the youngest player in the entire league. He has high-end offensive upside, already putting up a point per game at the NCAA level. He has the ability to finish off plays and take defenders one-on-one. Wood needs to improve his skating to become a great player in the NHL, but I think the time that he's going to get to spend at the University of Connecticut and already putting up these numbers as the youngest player in the league, I think that he has some high upside, and he'd be a good pick for number 13 for the Buffalo Sabres. The 14th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and like the Vancouver Canucks, if they decide to keep that pick, I think the best player available for them is defenseman Axel Sandin-Pelikka out of the SHL in Sweden. Sandin-Pelikka recorded 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points in 22 SHL games, and while playing for their J20 team, which is essentially their U20 team, Skellefteå that is, in the SHL, he recorded 16 goals, 20 assists for 36 points in 31 games. Sandin-Pelikka, I think the best part about him, he's an awesome skater. He's got really high offensive upside. He projects to be a first power play unit guy. Great puck skills and playmaking ability. And he's got a really solid point shot, which is obviously really good for forwards getting to the net, for rebounds, tips, and stuff like that. He relies on his speed and is able to make high-end plays off the rush. It's definitely what you want to see from defensemen. A lot of defensemen that obviously don't have that high-end skill, don't always get up in the rush that much. But I think especially at number 14 overall, if you're picking a defenseman, I think a guy like that is definitely going to have to contribute in that way. If he falls to number 14, I think it's going to be a great pick for the Penguins, as Sandin-Pelikka may take a couple more years before he's able to step into the NHL and fully develop. And he can slide nicely into that first power play unit when Chris Letang is kind of fading out of the league just because of his age. The number 15 overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Nashville Predators, and if available, I think they should be picking Oliver Moore. Oliver Moore played with Ryan Leonard, Will Smith, and Gabe Perreault at the U.S. National Development Program this season. Between the USHL and the National Team Development Program, he had 39 goals, 61 assists for 100 points in 84 games. He is currently committed to attend the University of Minnesota next season. The one thing about Oliver Moore that I really like is he kind of has that dog-like mentality where he just wants to win puck races and create something when he gets the puck, just making him an awesome player to play with if you're on his line, because he's always able to get into those corners and in front of the net. Moore has a really high hockey IQ that allows him to process plays before they happen, and he's able to just be in the right position for his teammates to be able to receive passes and create scoring chances. Nashville, in the past couple years, has lacked really good forwards on their team, and Moore would add to the list of prospects that Nashville can be excited for if they decide to pick him with the 15th overall selection. The 16th overall pick in this year's draft belongs to the Calgary Flames, and I think, if available, they should be picking Quentin Musty out of the OHL. Musty had 26 goals, 52 assists, for 78 points in 53 games with Sudbury in the OHL this season. He is not afraid to use his 6'2" body frame and get on the boards in front of the net. He's like a power forward type player that also has a lot of high-end offensive skill. He has great vision to make high-end passes, and he has a really underrated shot. He showed it off at the U18s last year. I'm honestly a little bit surprised he only ended up scoring 26 goals this year, but I think that is something that he can continue to grow on, and it would make him a really good pick at number 16. He is a strong power forward. The Flames do like those type of players, and I think if he's available at 16, he would not just be a player they're looking for, but I think he'd be the best option available. The 17th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Detroit Red Wings. This pick originally belonged to the New York Islanders. The Vancouver Canucks received this pick in compensation for Bo Horvat, and then Vancouver decided to trade for Filip Hronek from the Detroit Red Wings, sent that first-round pick there, so that's how it ended up with Detroit. And I believe with this pick, they should be picking Dmitri Simashev. Simashev is a really big player, listed at 6'4", 201 pounds, and in 33 MHL games this year, which is the league below the KHL, he had 12 points in 33 games, and in 18 KHL games this year, he did not register a point. I think the best part about Simashev's game, though, is his defensive ability and his skating. Listed at 6'4", 201, he's a really hard player to play against. He is good at angling off opponents and using his stick. But a really good part about his game, too, is his skating. He's a really impressive skater for his size, regardless if it's backwards, rushing the puck up. He's got really good edges as well. And I think it makes him to be a very noticeable player on the ice and a player that you would be looking at to pick in the middle of the first round. The good thing about Simashev, too, is even if he's losing a foot race, he's got that big frame, which allows him to use that active stick to still angle off opponents. Like I said, he's listed at 6'4", 201 pounds, and he's already played 18 pro games in his draft year in one of the best leagues in the world. Simashev should help develop into a really good defenseman in the NHL, and after his contract expires in 2025 with Locomotive, I think he could come over and make an impact in the NHL. The 18th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Winnipeg Jets, and I think they should select Braden Yager out of the WHL. Yager is one of the best releases in this draft, being able to get the puck off his stick quick in a number of different ways. He had a great playoff where he recorded 6 goals, 10 assists for 16 points in 10 games. His consistent point production can really help the Winnipeg Jets as an offensive first team. In 2 combined seasons in WHL, he's got 62 goals, and I think there's a lot more to come at the junior level and in the NHL level, as he seems like he's just starting to break out and to become a really good player. I think the Winnipeg Jets, like I've mentioned in past videos, I think they've had a pretty good top six for some time now, and I think Jäger, if he continues to develop at the pace that he is, he can step into the Winnipeg Jets lineup and continue to help their forwards score goals. The 19th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Chicago Blackhawks. The Hawks acquired this pick in a trade for Brandon Hagel last season when the Tampa Bay Lightning sent a first-round pick in 2023 and 2024. With this pick, I think the Hawks should select Nate Danielson from the WHL. Danielson was the captain of the Brandon Wheat Kings this past season, where he recorded 33 goals, 45 assists, 78 points in 68 games. He's a good skater who isn't afraid to drive through the middle of the ice to make things happen. He does everything really well. I wouldn't say he's really great at anything in particular. He's always committed to playing defense, and he's trusted a lot by his coaches. I think that Danielson projects to be a strong second-line center if he's able to reach his potential. In an 18th overall pick, I think you're getting a really good player in Nate Danielson who can hopefully continue to develop. The 20th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Seattle Kraken. I think the Kraken should choose Eduard Salé from Extraliga. Salé recorded 7 goals, 7 assists for 14 points in 43 games for HC Cometa Bruno. He's a good skater and a skilled passer who can find teammates in the offensive zone. He's very noticeable in the transition, and his ability to weave up the ice is really impressive. He was projected a little bit higher this year, even closer to the top 10. I think his point production this year against men really put him down the rankings a little bit, and that's why I have him all the way down at 20. I wonder if he takes the route that Yuri Kulich did, who was drafted by the Sabres in the 20s last year. He had a really solid season in the AHL with the Rochester Americans, and I wonder if Salé makes that jump immediately to come over to North America to get used to this style of hockey. The 21st overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Minnesota Wild. With this pick, I believe the Wild should select Tom Willander. Tom Willander is a defenseman. He had 4 goals, 21 assists for 25 points in 39 games played in the under 20 Swedish League, and he had 0 points in 2 SHL games, the Swedish Professional League, for Rögle BK. Willander, even though playing professional in Sweden this past year, is committed to go to Boston University next season. He has strong offensive tools, his ability to move up the ice with the puck and create plays. Willander also has a really impressive defensive game. He can quickly get the inside edge, regain possession of the puck, and transition to offense. He may not look as flashy as Sandin-Pelikka, but he's a really good all-around defenseman and could slot into a top 4 role with a team if he continues to develop in the right way, and I think it'd be a really solid pick at number 21 for the Minnesota Wild. The 22nd overall pick in this year's draft belongs to the Philadelphia Flyers. This pick was originally the LA Kings pick. They sent it to the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Vladislav Gavrikov at the deadline. And then recently, within the past couple weeks, Columbus traded that first-round pick to the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for Ivan Provorov. I think the Flyers with the 22nd overall pick should pick Mikhail Gulyayev out of the KHL. In a combined 47 games this year, between the MHL, VHL, and KHL, he recorded 2 goals, 27 assists for 29 points. He's expected to be a full-time KHLer next year for Avangard Omsk. I think the best part of this guy's game is his skating. He's a very noticeable player with and without the puck, and he makes impact on a lot of plays. If he can improve a bit offensively, I think he'll be an impact defenseman in the NHL. I think it's just going to take him a couple years to fully develop, and I think the Flyers are really in no rush at this point, looking like they're going to go into a full rebuild. I think they have the time to wait for this guy before he can develop into a really good defenseman, and he can be a part of the solution for the Flyers in the future. The 23rd overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the New York Rangers. I believe with this pick, they should pick Riley Heidt from the WHL. He recorded 25 goals, 72 assists for 97 points in 68 games for the Prince George Cougars. He's currently listed at 5'10", but you really wouldn't be able to notice that with how physical he is, never really passing up the opportunity to make a hit. He has other really strong skills as well, which include puck handling, vision to find his teammates, and he's got a really solid release on his shot. The Rangers would love to have a physical player like him that can produce offensively. They obviously drafted one a couple years ago in Brennan Othman, who's probably going to make the team next year, but it wouldn't hurt to have another guy like this, and I think you're getting good value for him at pick number 23. The 24th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Nashville Predators. This pick was originally owned by the Edmonton Oilers, but they traded it at the deadline to acquire Matthias Ekholm. I think with the 24th overall pick, the Nashville Predators should select Ethan Gauthier out of the QMJHL. Gauthier recorded 30 goals, 39 assists for 69 points in 66 games for the Sherbrooke Phoenix this past season. In the past couple weeks, he was traded to the Drummondville Voyageurs along with a 4th round pick in 2023, and they got a haul of a return for him. A first in 2023, 2024, 2025, 2 2024 second round picks, and a 2023 third round pick. But he's quite the player. He's going to play in the QMJHL for a couple more years, so this is worth it for Drummondville for sure. He is a great player to play with and always able to get open, giving his teammates options for plays. He's great along the boards, tipping pucks in front of the net, and he has a really good shot. Nashville could be adding another sniper to their prospect pool, along with 2021 first round pick Joakim Kemmel. Obviously, Nashville's lacked scoring the past couple seasons, and I think adding a guy like Ethan Gauthier to the prospect pool would be really beneficial for them moving forward. The 25th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the St. Louis Blues. This pick was originally owned by the Toronto Maple Leafs, but they traded it at last year's trade deadline to acquire Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari. With this pick, I believe the St. Louis Blues should select Gavin Brindley from the NCAA. Brindley played with Fantilli at the University of Michigan, where he had 12 goals, 26 assists for 38 points in 41 games. One really solid part of Brindley's game is his 200-foot play. He's a really smart player in his own end, never cheats up the ice to go into the rush, and understands the importance of helping out his defenders. He had a really solid season at Michigan, but the question about Brindley is if he can kind of lead his own line. He played with Hobey Baker winner Adam Fantilli, who's going to go really high in this draft, obviously, and it did help inflate those numbers. But if he continues to show strides next season and show that he's able to lead a line without a really good player in Fantilli, I think that he projects to be a top 6 forward in the future. The 26th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the San Jose Sharks. This pick was originally owned by the New Jersey Devils, but they traded at the trade deadline last year to acquire Timo Meier. With this pick, I think the Sharks should select Daniel Butt out of the KHL. He recorded 18 goals, 14 assists for 32 points in 32 MHL games, and 2 goals, no assists for just 2 points in 15 KHL games. He's a really skilled winger with good enough skating to be a great middle six winger in the NHL. It's tough to say at the moment, but Daniil's size and skill combo is so unique that I think an NHL team's going to take a chance on him in the first round. He's a really big body, listed at 6'5", and he could be a really good power forward and maybe the second best in this draft behind Adam Fantilli. The 27th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Colorado Avalanche. With this pick, I believe they should select Callum Ritchie from the OHL. Ritchie recorded 24 goals, 25 assists for 59 points in 59 games with the Oshawa Generals. He's a high-end offensive talent who has a pass-first type mentality. He's a really effective player who is really solid all around as well. The downfall about him a bit, though, is kind of like his unselfishness at times. He's not seeming like he wants the game on his stick, and he's always with that pass-first mentality in opportunities where I think he could be shooting the puck. He's still a really good player, averaging a point per game in the OHL, but I think these are some of the changes he's going to have to make to his game if he wants to be an effective NHL player in the future. The 28th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Toronto Maple Leafs. This pick was originally traded from the Boston Bruins to the Washington Capitals for them to get Dmitri Orlov, and then the Leafs sent Rasmus Sandin to the Washington Capitals. They sent this first-round pick to Toronto, so Toronto is selecting Boston's original pick. With this pick, I believe the Maple Leafs should select Samuel Honzak out of the WHL. This past season, he recorded 23 goals, 33 assists for 56 points in 43 games with the Vancouver Giants. He's a big guy who moves well and can get to the net. After battling some injuries this season, he was able to still produce offensively. He's still getting used to the North American ice, though, after coming over as a 2022 selection in the CHL import draft. If Honzek grows into a 6'4" frame, I think he can be a really good power forward at the NHL level, and I think that's something the Leafs can definitely use at this time and in the future. The 29th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the St. Louis Blues. This pick was originally owned by the Dallas Stars. The Stars traded this first-round pick last offseason to acquire defenseman Nils Lundqvist, and then the New York Rangers sent the Blues the first-round pick close to the trade deadline to acquire Vladimir Tarasenko. I think with this pick, the Blues should select Lukas Dragicevic out of the WHL. Dragicevic played for the Tri-City Americans this year, where he had 15 goals, 60 assists for 75 points. He's a great offensive player who is a pass-first type player, who's able to score 15 goals this year as a D-man in the WHL, which is also pretty impressive just because he's been known as like a pass-first guy. His skating is also really good, being able to move up and down the ice with ease. The one thing that is a knock on him, and you're probably wondering, he's over a point per game, why isn't he ranked higher? His defensive play is pretty bad. He commits too much to offense and is too much of a high-risk player. I just think this is going to drop his stock in the draft, and he's going to be looking to go near the end of the first round. The 30th overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Carolina Hurricanes. With this selection, I believe they should pick Bradley Nadeau from the BCHL. Nadeau played for the Penticton Vees this past season, where he had 45 goals, 68 assists for 113 points in 54 games played, and had an incredible playoffs where he had 17 goals, 18 assists for 35 points in 17 games played to help lead the Penticton Vees to a championship. He is currently committed to attend the University of Maine next season, going the route of playing Junior A and going NCAA instead of playing the CHL and potentially going to the AHL, then the NHL. Nadeau is a threat on the rush, no matter what part he's playing because of his speed, shot, and hams to make him a dangerous on-puck presence. But he's also slippery and has a knack for finding open space with his smart off-puck routes. So he's really good at finding open space. I mean, he's really good at making his teammates a lot better as well. He did lead the entire BCHL in scoring this year. Some people had him in the second round. I think he just played that good that he bought himself a ticket in the first round of this year's draft, and I think Carolina will be getting a really solid player if they select him. The 31st overall selection in this year's draft belongs to the Montreal Canadiens. This pick was originally owned by the Florida Panthers, but they sent it at last year's trade deadline to acquire Ben Sherratt. With this pick, I believe the Canadiens should select Hunter Bruskewitz from Kitchener in the OHL. This past season, he recorded 6 goals, 51 assists for 57 points in 68 games. He made the decision to come over before last season to the OHL after spending the year before in the U.S. National Development Program. Hunter is a solid two-way defenseman who's able to produce offensively on an 8-seed Kitchener Rangers team. He's really solid at skating the puck out of the zone and making the right play. Montreal can add to a weak right-handed side of their D-core, which they've been looking to fill since they've lost Jeff Petrie and Shea Weber. The 32nd overall pick in this year's draft, which is the final pick of the first round, belongs to the Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights. With this pick, I believe they should select Cohen Zimmer out of the WHL. Zimmer played with Riley Heidt on the Prince George Cougars this past season. He had 41 goals, 48 assists for 89 points in 68 games. Zimmer's had a good production over the past 2 seasons of the WHL and has become quite the goal scorer. What stands out about his game is being creative and crafty, using a strong stick handling to create space for himself. One thing that pushes him down the ranking is probably his average skating. He's produced at a high level this year with 89 points. But I mean, I think skating's definitely going to push him down people's draft boards a lot. If a team's willing to work on him with the mechanics of his stride, I think that he can become a pretty good NHL player. I think Vegas definitely just has the time and the mechanics within their organization to potentially help him grow into a top 6 forward in the NHL. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this video up. I went through all 32 picks of the first round in my mock draft. Here's a list of it here you can see on the screen. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't had the chance to check out any of our content, please go back and do so. Please like, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to stay connected.